When it comes down to it, I don't think Solar Hunters get the respect that they deserve, and that is very unfortunate. Now, Solar Hunter is not in a particularly great place. Of course, they nerf Blade Barrage, Golden Guns. Either one of them don't do a lot of damage inside of PvE. However, their Tripmine Grenades are amazing, especially when paired with the exotic we're making a build with today, which is going to be young Ahamkara's Spine, in combination with an aspect that we have that nobody ever talks about. And today we're going to talk about that. But first, if you're new or find yourself coming back pretty regularly, please consider subscribing, as it helps me out a ton. And if you are already subscribed, liking and commenting also helps me out a ton. Now, a quick word from our sponsors and we'll get right into this video. Now, like I mentioned just a minute ago, the exotic we're going to be using for this build is young Ahamkara's Spine, which comes with the exotic perk Witch Dragon's Teeth. Increases Tripmine Grenade duration and blast radius. Ability damage grants Tripmine Grenade energy. When you hover over this exotic, it simply says ability damage grants enhanced trip mines. What this means is that the trip mines now receive a 14% increase in explosion damage, explosion length, and width are increased to 14 meters. Explosions no longer deal self-damage and has no damage fall off. The self-damage part is amazing. I can't tell you how many times I've killed myself with my own trip mine. They also now last for 30 seconds over the previous 10 seconds and increases the Tripmine durability to 100 HP with 50% damage resist, which is incredible for PvP. It also gives Fastball intrinsically, which I think should just be a game option. I shouldn't have to slot in a mod just to throw my grenades further. And solar ability damage recharges 33% of the Tripmine Grenade ability. Tripmine and Knife Trick hits count as 2 instances of solar ability damage if the target survives, which means we can spam our abilities on high health targets, which will cause ignitions because of the stacking of Scorch. As for weapons, I use 2 different ones. The first one we're going to talk about is the one I tested this build entirely with, and that is Sunshot, which comes with the perk Sunburn. This weapon fires explosive rounds and highlights targets that take damage from Sunshot, and its other perk Sunblast. Targets killed with Sunshot explode in solar energy. I love this hand cannon. It fulfills my solar space cowboy fantasy with this build in combination with the aspect we're going to talk about later. Plus, the explosions now spread Scorch to nearby enemies, which was great paired with a fragment I used as well. And hand cannons are getting a 20% buff on Tuesday, which I believe this video is coming out on Tuesday. So today, with the mid-season patch, hand cannons are getting a 20% buff inside of PvE, so Sunshot's going to be absolutely amazing. As for the second weapon, the one I used in the footage you are watching in the background, we have Prometheus Lens, which comes with the perks Prismatic Inferno, fires a solar trace beam that creates a field of heat energy that grows as the weapon is fired. Sustained damage applies Scorch to the target, and Flame Refraction. Kills with this weapon return a fraction of the ammo used to the magazine from reserve, extending the beam's duration. A Catalyst also gives Incandescent. This was another great weapon to use for this build, as it played heavily into scorching targets, which helps a ton with one of our fragments, leading us to spamming everything we have. Our artifact mods are very simple, as we only need to grab solar and grenade authorization unlocked, so we can stack some grenade and solar mods to make them cheaper. After this, you can unlock whatever you want to help with this build, whether that be Bursts from Beyond or even Shattering Orbs. As for our aspects, we're going to take Knock 'em Down. Your solar supers are enhanced. Deadshot Golden Gun has damage resistance, Marksman Golden Gun has increased duration, and Blade Barrage launches more projectiles, while Radiant Final Blows with your equipped throwing knife fully refund your melee energy. We are taking this mostly for the bonus enhancement to our supers. I ran Blade Barrage as it is the best PvE super for our Solar Hunter compared to both our Golden Gun options when not using Star Eaters. As for our second aspect, we're going to be taking Gunpowder Gamble. Defeat targets with abilities, solar debuffs, or solar weapons to charge up an improvised solar explosive. Press your grenade to throw the solar explosive that can be shot mid-air to cause an ignition. This is the aspect that I would consider to be the forgotten aspect because it is rare to see people using it these days. Yes, I know it only gives the 1 fragment slot compared to the 3 that you would get from On Your Mark, but the idea of taping 3 trip mines together and throwing them, shooting them out of the air, and causing an ignition is insanely fun. This also counts as a separate solar ability for Ahamkaras to get more Tripmine Grenade energy back, and the grenades you produce from this aspect can stun unstoppable champions and works with any mods or fragments you have that plays into your grenades. Speaking of fragments, the first one we're going to look at is Ember of Resolve. Solar Grenade Final Blows Cure You. This is a simple fragment that plays a huge part in this build, as we will have a bunch of grenades to throw between our trip mines and the gunpowder gamble. As this build does struggle with survivability, the cure you get from this particular fragment is going to help you in those sticky situations. We're also going to take a look at Ember of Singeing. Your class ability recharges faster when you scorch targets. In terms of our abilities, when it comes to our grenade, our knives, and our dodge is the one we need to get the most to get our knives back in order to keep getting the additional energy to our trip mines from Ahamkaras, allowing us to throw more grenades and get more stacks for our gunpowder gamble as well. The final fragment we're going to look at is Ember of Wonder. Rapidly defeating multiple targets with solar ignition generates an orb of power with a +10 to our resilience. This, in combination with an armor mod, our gunpowder gambler is going to make 2 orbs for us to feed into our other abilities and mods. Another huge thing that is a takeaway from this particular fragment is the +10 to resilience. Again, this build does struggle a little bit with survivability, so having that +10 to resilience start to help you push you into those higher tiers to get more damage resistance is also super beneficial. For our armor mods, we're going to start with our helmet with Solar Siphon. This way, whatever solar weapon we pair with this build will give us orbs to feed into the other stuff that we have going on, like our super and the other mods we're going to take a look at. I also ran 2 ashes to assets. We will have a bunch of grenades to throw, so we may as well get our super back faster while getting kills with them. The gunpowder gamble also counts for this mod as well because it is an improvised grenade. On our arms, we have firepower. Our grenades can make us orbs of power with this mod, which in turn will make it so we can throw more of them. This is the mod that, in combination with Ember of Wonder, is going to give us 2 orbs when we get a kill with our gunpowder gamble, because the gunpowder gamble counts as an ignition, so therefore there's going to proc Wonder, making us an orb, and it counts as a grenade, so now firepower is also going to make us an orb of power, giving us 2 from just the 1 gunpowder gamble. We're also going to run 2 bolstering detonations. Like I mentioned, our dodge is very important for us to get so we can get our knives back to get grenades back. This way, when we do deal damage with our grenades, we will get some of that class ability energy back. On our chest, I just have charged up so we can have an extra stack of armor charge to spend, as well as some resist mods. You can run whatever you wish in place of that. On our legs, we have stacks on stacks. Our orbs are now going to give us 2 stacks of armor charge, letting us hit that max stack of 4 much quicker. And our gunpowder gambler, in combination of Ember of Wonder and firepower, is going to give us those 2 orbs, allowing us to hit that max of 4 instantaneously for us to spend however we want to spend it. I also ran Innervation. Picking up the orbs we make will give us some grenade energy back. While not fully necessary, it was very helpful if I found myself just shy of a full Tripmine Grenade charge. And I also ran Insulation. Picking up the orbs we make are now going to give us class ability energy back, as we are playing heavily into our dodge to help us get our other abilities back. And finally, for our cloak, we have Reaper, where every time we dodge and get a weapon kill, it will make us an orb of power to help feed into everything we've talked about so far, which again is very helpful as we are playing into our dodge again very heavily to help us get our other abilities back. And because of that, we're also going to run Utility Kickstart. When we use our dodge, we will get some energy back, and it will consume our armor charge stacks to give us even more energy. Again, like I've been saying this entire time, we are relying on our dodge to heavily support this build and our other abilities to help us get our gunpowder gamble and our trip mine back as fast as we can with the use of our knife trick. Now, I know that gunpowder gambler is not the best aspect that we can run for most of our solar hunters, but it is extremely fun, and honestly, fun over function is to me a lot better, because fun stuff will eventually become functional once you get used to the gameplay loop. And what I mean by that is you can have a build that is completely just enjoyable to play, and you can take it into high-end content once you feel comfortable with it because you know how it works in and out, which is exactly what I did with this. I played with this build for like a week before I actually took it into anything that you would consider endgame or high-end content, and I really enjoyed it. The biggest downfall I had from this particular build, again, was its survivability. It didn't really have a lot of that, even with the Ember of Resolve, because sometimes in that high-end content, your grenades just don't get a kill and you can't get that cure off, but it is still, nonetheless, it's still an extremely fun build to play around with. Now, I hope in the future, Bungie either increases the potency of the gunpowder gamble or gives us an extra fragment slot for it, and in that case, we can just slot an Ember of Char, so the ignition we do create with gunpowder gamble will spread Scorch, will feed back into Singeing, and we can just keep going absolutely crazy with our abilities. But with that, that is the end of the video, so like I said earlier, please, if you are new, consider subscribing. If you keep finding yourself coming back, again, please consider subscribing. If you are already subscribed, liking and commenting helps a ton, and I will see you guys in the next video.